Welcome to the Model Health Show. This is fitness and nutrition expert Shawn Stevenson here with my awesome, powerhouse, amazing producer of the Model Health Show. Thank you so much for putting this whole jam together. And my co-host, Jade Harrell. What's up, Jade?
What's happening, Shawn?
How you doing today?
Today I am phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal. What is that?
Yes, fantastically, amazingly phenomenal.
Did you just do a triple play? You know how rare that is?
I know, like a gem.
It's like seeing a Sasquatch. You know?
Bigfoot.
Apparently there's new pictures, by the way.
Yeah, to refuel the craze.
Or nah.
That's Uncle somebody.
So, anyways, you know, it's some
Running around
random guy out there. It's like, I saw him.
That's right.
I saw the hairy some. I was riding in my truck.
He looked
I
at
saw
me in
Sasquatch.
my eye.
He looked me dead in my soul.
Right.
Be careful of
I'm gonna get him.
Sasquatches. How do you plurify that?
Sasquatchy.
It's so cute to see my son, you know, Braden, when the kids start to put the plurals on things, you know, I think he's asking something about the show. He's like, are there any guests coming on?
Aw.
You know, it's so
He
cute,
is
man.
so
You don't
young.
want to correct him either. It's
That's
just like,
right.
stay cute forever. There's some things my 16-year-old son, Jordan, says still.
16.
Yeah, and I don't correct him. It's so funny. I don't remember what they are right now. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for
I've
tuning
got
into
a
the
funny
show.
one, yeah.
We've got an incredible episode lined up for you guys. I'm so excited about this because it's one of my favorite topics.
Yeah.
One of my favorite health practices is incorporating these medicinal mushrooms, right? I've been studying this for many, many years, and it's been an intricate part of my life, and I can't wait to share more. But we've got somebody who knows this stuff inside and out. I mean, he's lived and breathed it, as we all have, as you're going to find out today.
Right.
This
They've been
medicinal
given
mushrooms
to
and how
us.
valuable they are. There's so much clinical research, and what you're going to learn today is actually going to blow your mind, and how much pharmaceuticals are actually tied into mushrooms as well. You know, some of the stuff that, it's absolutely mind-blowing.
He knows his shrooms.
He knows his stuff. So before that, check this out.
What?
This new protein, right? Hemp Force protein. There's a new recovery protein. Do you understand? They've got recovery protein. We just did a show talking about the pre-workout, intra-workout, post-workout, the best and clinically proven stuff across the board. BCAAs, we talked about that. They've actually put the BCAAs into the
Just
hemp protein.
made it simple. Yeah.
Plus, you're just looking at me.
Right. I'm like,
Plus, they've added in colostrum. All right. We're talking about
really?
growth factor. All right. We've got pure
That's right.
growth factor in there.
I'm proud of that.
And a lot of them also immunofactors, growth factors, stuff that you're not going to find anywhere else, concentrated into this protein. It tastes amazing.
Okay.
So you can check that out. Also, the Hemp Force protein,
What
the
is
original
it called? What's that one
recovery
called?
protein.
It's called
Yeah,
recovery
it's for, right,
protein.
it's for that
How
purpose.
fortuitous.
So check that out. I'll talk more about it coming up
Yeah, we'll
soon
have to.
because it's amazing. And I'm just not testing it out, so I don't want to say too much yet till I make sure that my body is vibing 120%.
Exactly.
But, you know, just
yeah,
from what
but
I've
the way
already
you're
experienced.
killing it out here.
Oh,
My
man,
goodness,
thank you.
I'm watching
Thank you.
your Instagram.
I mean, thank you.
Yeah.
Just keep,
I
don't
mean,
stop, though.
seriously,
Keep going.
in the 15 seconds, I felt like, wow, we've been all around the gym.
Yeah.
We've done things that, I mean, I say we because as you're doing it, my mirror neurons are saying, woo, one day.
I'm there. That muscle up, I'm on it.
That's right.
And that's what I really work on, have devoted my life to, is that, you know, this word functional fitness. But, you know, I've been doing this stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
But really incorporating these power lifts, this was the part that was left out for me. But it's not in the last like 5 or 6 years I've been incorporating, but early in my career, it was a lot more, you know, it was free weight stuff, body weight stuff, the machines, stuff like that. But really having that component with the power lifts, you know, the deadlifts, the heavy squats, but also the functional kind of body weight stuff, you know, so really getting acclimated and very literate on moving my own body, you know, so the handstand push-ups and you see the Superman push-ups, the muscle-ups, all this stuff that I can do
with
now.
perfect form, though, you
People
know?
Message me like, you make it look so easy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I do. But it's because of that practice, you know, and it's just a lot of this stuff is the technique, but also it's the small things. You know, nutrition plays a huge role here,
Of course.
you know, and being able to do stuff, you know, people literally half my age, you know, it's really exciting, but also it's more exciting to get this into the hands of more people, the young people,
Right.
you know, get the kids on this stuff. What if we can get some of these like Olympic athletes on the real, you know, it's going to be crazy. It's like, what else can you do?
Well, our scholars, our students,
Yeah,
flat
exactly.
out just
exactly. We just watched a rocket launch.
Right.
right? Shu put up a rocket launch today, and it's just like, you know what? I'm gonna get inside of a missile.
He said that.
And you're gonna shoot me into space, right? Just crazy stuff that we are able to do, right?
Just know.
But so also Hemp Force protein, albumin, 3-to-1 ratio albumin, and edestin, which is exclusively found in hemp. Very, very bioavailable source of protein, building block for your human tissues, and it's exclusively found in this protein. So the Hemp Force protein, the vanilla acai, choco maca, check them out. Head over to onnit.com, onnit.com/MODEL. You're going to get 10% off. Now let's get to the iTunes review of the week.
This is nice. This is from Kim C. in Tennessee. 5 stars. Worthy health and lifestyle information. Love this podcast. I have learned so much and tried many new things that have made my health so much better. At 54, I feel great, truly great. I love that Shawn and Jade introduced me to the concepts and other experts in the field of wellness. I am working on my own certifications to help people my age live life to their fullest and healthiest. Thank you for changing my belief systems. Keep sharing, and you are making a difference.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much.
Too.
Big virtual hug. Thank you for leaving that review for us. And everybody, thank you so much for leaving these reviews on iTunes.
And paying it
Keep
forward.
them coming. Yes, pay it forward. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. All right, let's go ahead and get to our special guest and our topic of the day. Our guest today is Tero Isokauppila, and he is a 13th generation family farmer hailing from Finland. Shout out to Finland. We've got a nice audience in Finland. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. In 2012, Tero founded Four Sigmatic. Best known for its mushroom coffee products, Tero and Four Sigmatic have been featured in prominent media outlets including Vogue, Time, Forbes, BuzzFeed, Bon Appetit, and many others. Now based in Santa Monica, California, that's where we hung out at.
Goes.
And we had a couple of nice little beverages.
I bet you did.
Nice little beverages.
The best of the best.
Tero is.
Did he have them in like a fancy case?
We went to a spa. We went to Cafe Gratitude. Shout out to Cafe Gratitude.
Yeah, okay.
Tero is a renowned source on superfoods and expert on natural health. And in 2016, Tero was also chosen as one of the world's top 50 food activists by the Academy of Culinary Nutrition. And I'd like to welcome to the Model Health Show my friend Tero. What's going on, Tero?
Only best things ever.
Oh,
that's right. I'm gonna clap.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, man.
I want to give a 5-star review for you guys. You're the best.
Hey, I received that, man.
Yes. You. Thank you.
You're the podcast that other podcasts wants to be.
Just tell it like it is, bro.
Right,
just tell it like it is.
That's because we got that.
It's a fact.
Man, yeah, we're definitely on that. But man, it's so great to talk to you. And you're just one of the most giving, bright people that I know. Real talk, just right off the bat. I want to share that with everybody. And also brilliant. But I'd love for you to share a little bit of your story. Obviously, we just mentioned that you're from Finland, but talk a little bit more about this, the family generations of farming. Where are you coming from, and how did you kind of get to this place with the mushrooms today?
Yeah, totally. So I grew up in Finland, and Finland was about 600 and something years part of Sweden and a little over 100 years part of Russia. So we know that we've been having the farm at least 13 generations, that's for sure, but maybe it's even longer. And it's about 2 hours north of Helsinki. Nobody really knows any cities in Finland, so no point of mentioning them, but about
shout out to Helsinki.
Shout out to Helsinki. And yeah, it's a very famous area for organic farming, herbalism. A lot of our neighbors are some of the most known herbalist in the Nordic countries. And then I went to an environmental school that my great-granddad helped to found. So we were essentially like building nests for owls and collecting wild food. And, I grew up showering in spring water. So it was a very natural lifestyle. And it's the land of thousands of lakes. So there's a lot of lakes and springs and water and forest. And what you find in forest, so Finland is somewhat similar to, let's say, Maine and Vermont. So we find a lot of wild berries and mushrooms, and that's where the mushroom stuff started, collecting kind of the edible mushrooms, the chanterelles and pleiades of the world. And then by accident, about 12 years ago, me and my friend found a rare mushroom that was only thought to grow in one island in Japan, growing also in Finland, and we won an innovation award for that. But my true passion was always like optimal physical performance. I wanted to become a pro athlete, and so I was always interested in how I could improve performance. So essentially performance boosting stuff, and mushrooms were just so potent, so that took me away.
Oh, man.
Cool. You just stumbled upon a rare lost mushroom that shouldn't even been in that region. It was meant for you.
Yeah.
It was designed for you.
Yeah, maybe.
What a beautiful background.
I'm really curious about the culture there. I'd love to know more about that. Where they're like, because today we're very far removed from this, especially in our kind of modernized, westernized culture. Where my grandfather, and this is a story I've shared only like a handful of times. Growing up, he hunted, and my grandmother had her own garden, these kind of things. And eventually they moved to the quote country, all right? And he would forage and gather mushrooms, and then he would actually sell them, right? I know this is crazy, right? But I was so disconnected from that, like he actually passed away before I really woke up, or just kind of right around that time period, because I would have loved to learn that craft from him. But the 80s and the 90s, eating got to him, right? He like 3 open heart surgeries. But also, so he would do those things, but also that culture, where he was eating like, because of the heart problem, initially they had him eat, country crock, right? So he's eating the partially hydrogenated, like spreading that like crazy on everything. Grandma's cooking with that. And the partially hydrogenated and fully hydrogenated oils and like Jiffy peanut butter and all this stuff. And, but he had that interesting balance, but I would have loved to learn more about that. But so was that a part of your culture there where people are kind of like going on these nature hikes or something? Or is it just like tell me a little bit more about this, how you learned about it?
Sure. Actually, a funny story. I was just spending time last week with Wim Hof and his team doing the breathing exercises. And there was somebody who was asking like, hey, so have you tried ice baths? Like, have you ever tried it? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, when did you try it for the first time? I was like, I was maybe like 5 or 6 when we jumped into frozen lake with my grandma, so sauna, living in the countryside is a big thing, especially summertime. People leave the cities, they go and live in cottages that don't necessarily have running water. So kind of living off the land for summers at least. And in our case, throughout the year. And sauna is actually a Finnish thing as well. But as far as the foraging goes, pretty much everybody has foraged berries because they're yummy, So people forage bilberries, which are like essentially wild blueberries, lingonberries, wild raspberries, wild strawberries. So everybody's familiar with that. Mushrooms here and there, most people are. So some of the most classic Nordic cuisines like mushroom soups it's very popular. But we don't even consider it like organic. It's not like necessarily the biggest thing. Now it's becoming a big thing again, but for a long time it was just food. It was traditional food, and it's kind of funny. It's like now it's a kind of a hot thing, but it was just food. It was not organic food. It was just food. So
you started making it an offering to the world, in a sense, really with, and I would take it back to that major discovery of the rare mushroom. But bringing those things that we most certainly need. It's hot now because it's something that we've gotten so far away from. Shawn said he was removed, and I'm glad that you even remember that about your grandfather. That's powerful.
No,
they
actually,
there.
I found this out later.
So, oh, wow. Yeah. And so it was there. But then, you, in a sense, brought it to light by living out fully and not necessarily turning it over to the way many of us have become. You brought that to light, and so now we're all able to enjoy and embrace that. So it's hot, but it's back to our core. It's the things that really make us who we are that we needed to connect with. Yeah,
and one of the things you just brought up is this label, and we get into this label with everything, and now there are actually some labels of different mushrooms. So let's talk about those. Let's talk about the different categories of mushrooms. So we're talking about primarily medicinal mushrooms, but what are the other types of mushrooms that there are?
So yeah, there's definitely different kinds of mushrooms. To keep it really simple, we can think of most people think of the culinary mushrooms or nutritional mushrooms. So when they go to your local grocery store and you see those mushrooms near the kale and tomatoes in the store, those are usually the culinary mushrooms. And those are great alternative source for vegetables. So they have fiber. They have some of them are even complete protein. They have some minerals, some vitamins. They're great alternative. So you should definitely eat those every now and then. So that's your portobello, cremini. Then there's a category of, obviously, people talk about psychedelics. Yes. So that's another thing that people talk. It's gaining a lot of momentum. And And then there is these medicinal mushrooms that often are actually growing on trees. And that's a thing that a lot of people don't realize, is that a lot of these good mushrooms grow on trees and they get the energy off the tree. And this is not a woo-woo thing, especially one of my favorite mushrooms, Chaga. It's most scientifically, one of the most scientifically studied compounds, betulin and betulinic acid, actually come from the tree it grows in, which is birch. So without the tree, there's not the medicinal properties of chaga the same way. So it's kind of like the same way as plants collect energy. Like you mentioned, hemp. Hemp is a beautiful plant, and hemp collects the energy of the soil and the sun. Mushrooms collect the energy of, in this case, from the trees, because mushrooms are like humans, that they cannot produce their own food. They have to get the food from external sources, like from the tree. So these medicinal mushrooms are another category. Then there's many kinds of yeasts. So to make beer or wine or bread or spores in the air. There's different kinds of spores. So as we're talking right now, every one of us is breathing in these spores. And so there's many different kinds of mushrooms, both from a scientific point of view and their use case, but that's kind of a high level layman terms.
Yeah, I love that. You just said, said a couple of really important things here. Number one, you just said we're breathing spores, mushroom spores. So what? And also you said, I want you to talk about that. And also you said that mushrooms are kind of like people. So let's start there. All right. So mushrooms are kind of in their own category, class. We kind of think of them as vegetables in our world, but they're not. Let's talk about that first.
Yeah, let's start with that. So a lot of people do think that if you're on a plant-based diet, then you'll eat plants and mushrooms. But actually, fungi, which is the kingdom, fungi or fungi, you can say either way. Fungi are a different kingdom. So they're separate from plants, animals, bacteria, and other simple cell creatures. So they're very distinctly different. But what's really interesting is that we used to be part of the same super kingdom as animals and fungi. So we're way closer to animals, are way closer to fungi than to plants. And that means it's also the best thing about fungi and the worst thing about fungi, because of this DNA similarity that is up to 50% of our body and 80 to 85% of our ribosomal DNA. So how we synthesize proteins is the same with fungi. So essentially almost half mushroom.
Crazy.
So because of this, we're really prone to fungal disease. And I'm sure a lot of listeners, candida or mold in buildings, those are all bad kinds of fungi. But we can also use this fungal medicine. It's very bioavailable. So the good kind of mushrooms, they can do amazing stuff. So almost 40% of pharmaceuticals utilize fungi, anything from penicillin to immunosuppression. So out of the 20 best-selling drugs in the 21st century, 10 utilize fungi. So from the 20 bestsellers, 10 utilize fungi. And it's a lot to do with this DNA similarity that we have with animals and fungi. So that's kind of
So is there not some smoke coming out right now of my head? Because that's so powerful for us to really realize that we are more similar to mushrooms than almost anything on the planet. It's very strange in a way, but also we're breathing in mushroom spores. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so same way as any plant or animal, there's different parts to these fungi. So I guess we can start from the beginning, which is the seed or the spore or the sperm, and that's the spore. So how does life start in the fungal kingdom is from the spore, and which is the seed of mushrooms, and then that creates hyphae. Hyphae creates mycelium. Mycelium is like the rooting network. So wherever you walk in the earth, you'll be walking on top of mycelium. It's the wood wipe web. So it's like a web, and it's like spider web underground, and all plants utilize it to collect water. So this is underground. You're not going to see it, but it's everywhere. So it's important to know that mycelium, and mycelium will then, depending on the mushroom types, but usually collects all of its life force from a large area or body into these fruiting bodies and pop it up, usually annually. There's exceptions. So think of it like, the most common example is think of like an apple and an apple tree. The mycelium is like the tree itself. It's going to stay multiple years, if not decades, or if not even hundreds of years. But once a year, it's going to pop these fruits, which I'll call fruiting bodies. And the fruiting body is actually the mushroom. So if you hear the word mushroom, you're thinking of the fruiting body. And if you go to the grocery store and you see those mushrooms, those are the fruiting bodies. the mycelium was left underground. And then later at the life cycle of that fruiting body, it's going to create spores and start the cycle again. So 3 things you need to know is spores are the seeds, mycelium is the kind of important part for the ecosystem environment, and fruiting body is the part you want to eat.
Wow. Yeah.
We're in a big old womb.
Of course.
Right? I mean,
Mother
we're
Earth.
in the womb.
Now,
yes.
similar, you said that mushrooms are similar to us. So number 1, they're similar to us. So that inherently should sprout intelligence in your mind when you think of, I said sprout, when you think of mushrooms, that there's this hyper intelligence there. When we just look past it as this is some kind of inert, random thing that's just there, But actually, when you talk about that network, the mycelium, I remember reading years ago that it's really mushrooms are responsible in a large degree, like for forests, and just in how they're communicating and sending data throughout the network of plants, so that one tree over here has got some issues, so they're going to send nutrients over to this tree. It's absolutely mind blowing. But what we're looking at and what we're interested in is getting the right parts of the mushroom, right? That's one of the important things, and also the extraction process is one of the issues. So when you talked about culinary mushrooms, those are things that we think about. We chop them up, they put them on pizza or whatever, or you make some some mushroom boats or whatever. You put some hummus in there. You got to say hummus into the mushroom. But anyways, what about the medicinal mushrooms? You can't just walk up and start. Well, you can chew on some reishi, but how do you actually extract the goodies out of? You mentioned chaga earlier, so let's start with chaga. How do you actually extract some of those goodies out of it?
Yeah, this is a great topic because, like you said, we've forgotten a lot of this knowledge for a couple of generations, and so a lot of people don't have this understanding. And now with the rise of paleo and fermented foods and sea veggies and all these things that are kind of ancient food, they're becoming back on trend. It also means we have to relearn somehow ways how we prepare food, because you prepare fermented foods differently from fresh foods. The same way with these mushrooms, it's slightly different. And in this case, they have this layer, this cell structure, chitin, which is, think of the shell of a lobster. So they have a shell of a lobster that we cannot penetrate. Yep. And we lack this enzyme, or we have very little of it. So we cannot eat it. They're inedible. So how do you prepare them is like preparing another ancient amazing food, which is bone broth. So you first start by cooking them slowly. It's not a tea. Tea is called an infusion. This is called decoction. Decoction is when you cook it longer over time, and you extract these water-soluble compounds, predominantly these polysaccharides. So we can go later on why they're so important for our health. And then we should also add a lipid, fat, or a tincture. Tincture is when you extract it with alcohol and you get these more adaptogenic fat-soluble compounds out of them. So the mushrooms in general have 2 kinds of compounds. Some that are these water-soluble that generally are good for our immune system, which is really important. People, it's like sleep. Somebody needs to be the PR agency for the immune system, because we rarely think of our immune system until we're sick. Same with sleep. We should always be thinking of our immune system same way as we're focusing on our sleep. And then we have these fat-soluble compounds that usually are extracted with alcohol tincturing. Everybody's probably seen in some natural store those little bottles, and those take the adaptogenic properties out. And that combining those 2 together and evaporating the alcohol is often called a dual extract.
Yeah. So, okay. Now, so let's break down and talk about each of those categories, because they're incredibly important. And I remember, over 10 years ago, I believe the first one I fell in love with was probably reishi, and just not really understanding. I was getting specifically hot water extracted reishi. I think it was like mushroom science or something like that before I really got hip to Four Sigmatic and the awesome way they're doing this. So let's talk about what is coming. What are we getting from Chaga, for example, when we're doing a hot water extraction versus that alcohol extraction?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I know you've talked about it, but we do have these many sugars, these polysaccharides, especially these beta-glucans that have immunomodulatory benefits. So it's like it helps when your immune system is low or if your immune system is too high. Almost, if you go to an immune section of any store, they always say, like, here are the immune system supporters. They're almost always immunostimulants only. So it's essentially just boosting your immune system. But a lot of people these days have a hyperactive immune response when autoimmune disorders have gone through the roof, like Crohn's disease, MS disease, arthritis. So what these mushrooms have is this intellect of modulating it. And these are these polysaccharides that we get with the hot water. They're amazing. They're awesome. So having those hot water extracts is great. But what they also have, for example, chaga, is these things like betulin and betulinic acid that have these antiviral properties, totally like next level. And those things can, for example, and also chaga is probably one of the internet loves to debate about this, but one of the highest sources of antioxidants in the world, gram per gram. Yeah. But more particularly is like what type of antioxidants chaga has. So with this alcohol, we can get these melanin and SOD. Yeah. And these are two super vital things. So melanin, let's start with that. Melanin is the compound pigment that comes when we tan. And so people have heard about it often, actually. And that's great for our eyes, our skin, and our hair. So it's like a natural sunblock, but also if you want to look beautiful and young, you should drink a lot of chaga. And then SOD is one of these absolute monsters in the nutritional world, superoxide dismutase, and it's just so anti-inflammatory, so antiviral. It's amazing for your gut. Actually, the original research on chaga came from Russia in the 17th century, and a lot of it was for gut health and digestive issues. So chaga has a long history with gut health and digestive issues. And so if you travel or you're a lot in the car or generally inflamed, chaga helps. And then you want to get those fat soluble alcohol extracted compounds out of them.
Yeah. There's so many great nuggets here. And I really want people to be able to embrace this, because this could be something that's valuable for many, many years to come, many vital, healthy years to come. He just said it, we need somebody standing up and really representing the immune system. Your immune system is what is defending your body from every nefarious thing that's you're coming in contact with, which is happening all the time. Every microsecond, your immune system is dealing with something to keep you healthy and learning. It is intelligent. It's learning very quickly. Medicinal mushrooms help your immune system. They're like training programs. Like, you remember on The Matrix when he got like jacked in, he's like, I know Kung Fu. Yeah. Whoa. Right. And he just got jacked in, right? So this is doing this like for your NK cells, your natural killer cells, and helping to, and he said it's immunomodulator. So if your immune system is running too hot, it can help to bring it down, which is super valuable for people today whose immune systems have gotten off track because of, hyperexposure to, gluten or whatever. It's, something that's breaking apart their gut lining, but that's a whole other thing we've talked about many times. Mm-hmm. The bottom line is it helps to cool that off, bring it back down. It's being an immunoregulator in a way. And the same thing, if your immune system needs to be kicked up a notch. But also, I love the fact that he said we only think about it when we get sick. Mm-hmm. This is what's different about what you do and what I do. Let's be proactive in this. So if I do know, for example, I'm going to be traveling, I'm going to be jumping on this flight, I'm not going to wait until something happens so I start feeling a little whatever. I'm going to really ramp it up with my chaga or with my reishi, whatever it is that I'm using, even my botanical vitamin C. I'm going to be proactive in that. Of course, having some daily things as well. So being tonic, like, something that you can use every day versus coffee, where you can push the gas down too far, which I want to come back and talk about in a minute. Mm-hmm. But this is some powerful stuff he's talking about here. This is your immune system training from these legendary, clinically proven, over and over and over again. He mentioned the antioxidant. The internet likes to debate this. Chaga is quite possibly the highest antioxidant substance we know about. Possibly. Great. Right? Regardless, it's up there, like top five.
Yeah.
Right? Top five. They agree. Top five dead or alive.
There we go.
What's your favorite rapper? So I want to come back and one more quick thing. Yeah. Melanin and chaga. Mm-hmm. Come on. Mm-hmm. I mean, when we talk about that similarity with humans, I mean, where else do you hear something like that? Yeah, that's super powerful, man. Thank you for sharing that. So let's move on. We talked about chaga. I want to share this with you, Tero. I don't know if you've seen this yourself, but I've gone through seasons in my love of different mushrooms, right? I remember reishi was the first love. Then I shifted to cordyceps, and then I'd be like focused on it for like my body there was just an affinity there. And then chaga came in the picture. I really have this strong affinity towards lion's mane right now. Like I've got all this selection I could choose from, but I keep like I just want to have lion's mane, you know. So I don't know if you've seen that firsthand, but also let's talk about lion's mane and some of the benefits and why my body is really jiving with it right now.
I really want to know how come. Yeah.
Well, let's start with the fact that it's not actual mane of the lion. It's a mushroom. So some people mistake that as well.
Fluffy.
Yay. So it's a mushroom like chaga that grows on trees. You can get it in Northeast. It looks like the mane of a lion, or sometimes like a pom-pom mushroom, it has a lot of names. But why is it interesting for our health is there's a lot of foods out there if you want to like a pre-workout booster. Like if you're looking for a pre-workout booster or even a recovery product, you have a lot of options. But for cognitive health in a safe way, for example, these nerve growth factors in our brain, and I know you've talked about it, the blood-brain barrier before, and we can go there in detail as well if you want, but there's not a lot of stuff that can help repair our nervous system and our brain. Actually, when I started studying, my mom taught like physiology and anatomy in the 80s. They thought it's impossible. So it was only like in 90s and now just recent years, we figured out that you can start rebuilding these big time. And the innovator of these nerve growth factors, I believe she was an Italian. And I think she was the oldest Nobel winner in science, and I think she lived like 103 and served in the Italian Senate or government until the day she died. So powerful stuff. So anti-aging properties originally kind of used for Parkinson and Alzheimer, but we all need extra pain power, and it's a very safe way because a lot of these nootropics out on the market are not always that safe on daily or weekly basis. You have to rotate them, and then you have to know kind of what you do. So, you know, this is not Adderall for sure, but it's a safe way to help rebuild your brain and nervous system. And this is vital both if you're an athlete. Nervous system recovery is one of the hardest things you can do. Muscle, you can clean out that lactate and that post-workout muscle soreness you can get out pretty easily. But if you mess up your nervous system, it can take weeks and months and a long time to recover. So lion's mane is great for that. And obviously, if people who work in offices and will need that natural boost, highly recommend looking into lion's mane.
Yeah, I want to talk about that really quickly. This recovery with the nervous system. And, I saw this years ago, like when I first started deadlifting, like seriously deadlifting. It wasn't that I was sore the next week, or, maybe 5 days later, I feel like, I can definitely get into this. But my nervous system just wouldn't fire. Like my body just wouldn't do it. And it's because that nervous system needed to recover. There's a lot of like, it's an electrical system, there's a lot of wattage going through when you do certain things. And so as you develop and strengthen that ability to handle more wattage, it takes time for your body to adjust and to adapt as it moves up in those levels. And so I love that. So maybe that is a big factor for me and why I'm so attracted to it right now, because I've been on that brain gain for a long time, just like, learning and studying and finding ways to teach and all that stuff, absorbing a lot. So I don't think it's as much for my brain directly, but it could be that as well. But you mentioned something, being neuroprotective and having that nerve growth factor stimulation as well. Like we're talking about the ability for you, and we've actually, funny enough, we just had Dr. Wendy Suzuki on here, neuroscientist, and talking about specific parts of our brain can continue to grow significantly into older age. But there are parts of our brain overall needs to be protected, number one, and also we need to support it in developing new brain cells. And this is one of those ways that you can do that. Lion's mane is super valuable.
And I can comment on that as well. Even if you're not an athlete, I know you do a lot of sprints, and sprints are one of the things that are really tough for your nervous system. But also, people just living a normal lifestyle. Is 10 years ago, we really didn't have iPhones, and I know you were the one that turned me into this. But like scrolling of the Instagram and how it affects our dopamine and our search and like all that stuff, is that we have a lot more nervous system stimulants in the world now than we probably had before. So just the baseline stress, even if you're not a pro athlete, even if you're not Shawn Stevenson giving keynotes and like firing on all cylinders, if you're just a mom working, you have a lot more of these nervous system stimulants out there, and you got to be mindful of that. And I also want to say to the chaga previously is the eye thing. I think it's going to be big. I think where in 5 to 10 years, eye health is going to be a way bigger focus than it is today, because we are staring at these screens all day long. Nobody's talking about it because it takes a long time before it really kicks in. But eye health, people. So get those polyphenols and those chagas out there into your body, because like that's going to be huge. We look at the screens way too much, and I don't think it's going to go away. So we have to adjust. So rather than saying is like, don't look at the screen at work, try find ways how you can balance that modern lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. I'd love for you guys to help us more with that balance part, because they all sound like great mushrooms to have in our lives. And you went through your cycle, and right now it's lion's mane. But I wonder if we have to be careful. You know, I can get going on lion's mane and I didn't get my chaga enough, or can they all three go on at the same time?
That's
Should
a great question.
Let's
talk about that.
Can I make a shroom shake?
Yeah, so it's actually funny because a lot of people have been in the last 10, 20 years consuming these mushrooms in supplements. And so people are scared of supplements. Can I take, it's a supplement. I don't want to eat supplements. But the reason for that has been a lot because they're very bitter. So most people don't like bitters unless it's coffee or hot chocolate or something like that. But people don't like bitter, so they've been eating capsules. So they instinctively think that it's not safe. But mushrooms are food. They're what FDA calls often GRAS status, so generally recorded as safe. So obviously there's many kinds of mushrooms. I'm just talking generally, but generally speaking, they're safe for kids, elderly. It's actually funny. The most toxic and not always safe mushrooms are these culinary mushrooms. There's a lot of people allergic to them. And if you have the candida that we talked about, then you shouldn't probably eat that portobello mushroom. Oh, wow. But reishi mushroom is actually great against candida. And a lot of people who are allergic to mushrooms are not allergic to these tree mushrooms and these polypores. So they're safe. Obviously, like with anything powerful, you should start small and then gradually build it up. But you can't overdose on them per se, and you definitely should mix them. So the best anecdote I can give is think of them like dark leafy greens. Even though I love nettle, even though I love dandelion, I still want to eat a little bit of kale, get that arugula in. So they all have chlorophyll, same way as all these mushrooms have these polysaccharides, but they're slightly different mineral structures, slightly different things. So I highly recommend rotating them and using them. And you can definitely, same way as a mixed salad, you can have a mixed mushroom thing. So you can have that shroom shake with 10 mushrooms. That's
like
totally
it.
okay.
I like it. Is there a formula for that rotation? Couple weeks, few days, month or two?
Trust your gut. Just trust your gut.
Well, there you go. All right.
See, Jay, I appreciate the question, of course. And, so I'll just give an example for me. How about that?
That always helps.
Generally, like I said, I'm really vibing with the lion's mane right now, the incredible lion's mane from Four Sigmatic. But I'll strategically, maybe I use it for 4 days in a row, but then the next 3 days I'll use Cordyceps or something like that. And also I'll do mixtures as well. Like today, I can't wait to get home and to have a cup of chaga now, just even having this conversation. Too, yeah. But so that's what I'll do. I'll consciously, I'm listening to my body is the first go-to. But sometimes you need to bring a little bit more, kind of brain into it as well. And so it's just like, I know I'm having lion's mane, just like, here, go ahead and switch it up a little bit. And also, like, if I'm going to work out, I like to use Cordyceps, so I'll have that beforehand as well. And maybe as far as the combinations, you guys have some pretty cool combinations. You're tying in. Let's talk about this now, actually. So my wife is in love with the coffee. I was gonna say in love with the cocoa, but she's in love with the Four Sigmatic coffee.
She was on that cocoa for a while though.
We've been, I know, right? The chocolate, like that was her thing. Seriously. But so we've been together. I mean, we'll just say the first 10 years of our relationship, I saw her drink coffee like one time. Since she had Four Sigmatic's coffee. And I'm going to come back and also share her little recipe. She's just been like, that's her jam. Like, that's her peanut butter and jam, man. Why did you decide to combine the medicinal mushrooms with the coffee?
So there's two reasons. One reason is that Finnish people drink more coffee than any other nation per capita. So we drink about 4 cups per day. and for example, there was a long time I didn't drink any coffee. So there's someone who drinks 8 cups, right? And at the same time, chaga grows in our forest, and during Second World War, there was a lack of coffee beans, so we used chaga as a coffee substitute. So it was something we did. So, the funny part about that is that when you put chaga that tastes something similar to coffee, you also get a lot of these minerals: potassium, non-radioactive cesium, zinc, magnesium. All these minerals are very alkaline forming, so it kind of fixes the one big problem with coffee, that is coffee is very acidic. Yeah. Coffee is potentially really good for brain health. So there's studies on Parkinson and Alzheimer, and they have antioxidants. I think it's actually number one source of antioxidants in American diet. That probably talks more about the lack of veggie eating than the benefits of coffee, but still, we need those antioxidants for heart health. Heart disease is still number one cause of death. So coffee is great, but it's very acidic, so chaga can fix it. So that's one reason. And then mushrooms like cordyceps can help support your adrenal glands. I'm sure you guys talked about a lot of this, but like the jitters and the adrenal fatigue that is going on because we're just so stimulated all the time. So it's a great mix. The second reason why we did it was actually really funny, is that we started by selling mushroom tea that doesn't have any caffeine. So that's your chaga, that's your lion's mane elixir. And Europeans love tea. So we started the company in 2012 overseas in Europe, and Europeans love tea. But when we came to the US, we figured out really quickly that Americans don't have a habit for tea. They don't have a habit. And actually, this is really sad. Americans generally think that all tea is good because coffee has a bad rep, but we think tea is healthier. So you think like the tea they serve on the airplane is actually good tea. They don't realize there's big quality differences between teas. Not all teas are created equal. So the thought of them upgrading their tea with mushrooms felt odd because they thought, a lot of Americans think that all tea is healthy. So just coffee, everybody's addicted here to coffee. So just making the world's healthiest coffee seemed more attractive to a lot of people. So using the coffee to mask the bitter flavors of these mushrooms is one, and also making the coffee healthier is the second reason.
Yeah, got it.
Well,
so
sure,
I love that you mentioned that about the alkalinity factor, because so when you hear this whole alkaline acidity, acids and bases, or acids and alkaline, going back to school, there's this, there really wasn't sound science behind, saying that somebody is in an acidic state, all right? We can definitely be in a state where our body is consuming a lot more acidic compounds, but your body is always working to get back in balance. Some parts of your body need to be more acidic than others. Like that gets it out of the conversation of the fact that your body in different compartments, different areas are operating differently as far as their acidity and their alkalinity, right? So we want to understand first and foremost that your body is always going to balance out that acidic or alkaline nature in your system. And how does it do that? If you're running too alkaline, like if you're consuming a lot of coffee, like whatever, Folgers or Sanka, some Sanka, you're drinking some Sanka. Shout out to, is that even a thing? I don't even know if it exists anymore. Anyways, if people are drinking that stuff and that just hammering that button, that acidity, your body's going to start leaching minerals from your bones, for example, to buffer that acidity. It's going to find a way to buffer that. So it's not saying you're super acidic. It's just you're going to put your body into a state where health is not going to flourish. And so having that alkalinity balance with the mushrooms is a really, really smart thing. I think that's brilliant. And so with that said, I know what you're sipping on over there, but I'll just share. Oh, matter of fact, just share how you have your coffee over there today.
Today I'm just having a chaga latte. So I put
that's right.
So I have ghee, and then I have some MCT oil, and then I put cinnamon. I love cinnamon. So one of the problems with coffee as well is it can, for some people, not everybody, it can spike your blood sugar a little bit. So that's why things like reishi and shiitake, but also cinnamon, can help with the blood sugar management. So it gives a more balanced, both the lipids, the fats, and the cinnamon gives me a more balanced energy anyway. So that's how I'm
got the chocolate drinks as well. So the hot chocolates with the mushrooms. So that was a smart thing. Did you start that when you came here as well? Did you already have that going?
Yeah, we started when we came here. So people love their Swiss Miss and Yoo-hoo and whatever.
The marshmallows are in it, in the pack. So that's awesome. And so the bitterness is one of the things you mentioned, but I want to talk about this with you and your thoughts. Part of the missing component, I think, with our healing, and I believe there's probably a strong placebo effect along with this, and this disconnection from these different medicines and herbs, is that a lot of them we're throwing a capsule in, and it's just opening. Our first interaction with that herb or that nutrient is when it opens up in our stomach. We never really associate it with our palate and mixing it with our DNA and RNA, all kind of stuff. What do you think about that? Do you think there's like more healing benefits to actually consuming it as a food versus dropping a pill in there all the time?
Absolutely. I try to avoid being too woo-woo and saying things that are not yet proven, but this is one of the things I do believe, and I'm not sure if there's that sound science yet, but I do believe that once we taste anything, our body gets ready to absorb it. So be it the saliva, the enzymes, whatever is happening, I feel like I'm more ready for it. But even from a culinary point of view, one of the best things you can do to your kids, so everybody out there who have young kids, is give them a little bit of bitters. And it doesn't have to be mushrooms, but some form of bitters before they eat. And just start teaching them to enjoy those bitters. One of my favorites, what I had as a kid, was dandelion. And just on every spring, chewing on that dandelion. First couple of days, it tastes a little gnarly, but after 2 or 3 days you've been eating it, you actually start craving for it because your body starts to realize you need it. So bitters are great. Unfortunately, not enough bitters are being eaten, but I do believe that even if I would buy capsules, I often open them in my mouth and try them. And one good trick is that if you have to consume a lot of capsules, you just open one and swallow the rest. So you kind of give your taste buds a little like a preview, and then you put the rest in your belly. So but I can't scientifically prove that. So take that with a grain of salt, but I fully believe that if you taste it first, it will digest better.
Yeah, and over the years, I've opened up the capsules, also pouring them into smoothies and drinks and things like that. That's why I loved when your stuff came around with just these instant packets that are done the right way, which we'll talk about in a minute. It's really been a game changer. It's wonderful to have. It's super convenient when I travel. Oh my goodness, it's made my life so much easier than trying to open up all these capsules.
So what was Anne's recipe on the coffee?
So yeah, that's exactly what I want to talk about. Thank you for bringing it back.
Can we talk about the travel a bit? Let's
talk about that.
Because it bothers me a little bit that people talk about these daily recommended dosages, is that they're made for, on a bell curve, on a normal distribution for the normal person, to prevent the biggest illnesses in the world. That's how they're made. It's not an optimal dosage. It's the doses that are required to prevent osteoporosis or one of these major illnesses, whatever the nutrient is. And it's not designed for 100% of the population. It's designed in that bell curve for those biggest group of people. But also good to understand when we travel, even if we are on that bell curve, even if we're right smack in the middle of that mean, when we travel, our lifestyle changes. So our needs for vitamin C or B vitamins or zinc or iodine changes because our environment changes. We're in high stress environment. So I think you should really, really double down on all your health strategies when you're traveling, or if you're generally just in a high stress environment. And besides mushrooms, I think like things like I mentioned, B vitamins or iodine or things like that are really good.
Yeah. So I do that when I travel. So recent trip, we'll just say, 3 days. I'll grab a bunch of the Four Sigmatic packs, some Lion's Mane, Cordyceps. I'll throw it in my bag, maybe a Chaga, and I'll throw it in my bag and bring those with me. It's super convenient. Now, so the strategy, and I'll share my on the road strategy.
Yeah.
All right. So, and to cut the bitterness, you don't necessarily need a sweetener.
No.
All right. Fats help that a lot. And that's why I mentioned, having the ghee, because chocolate is bitter, actually. So she'll use grass-fed butter and or ghee and or, we're a big fan of the MCT oil. So you can be the plain original MCT oil, flavored MCT oils, like strawberry, vanilla, that kind of thing. And my wife, she's a sweetie, she's more into the sweets. So she definitely drops in, I think, but it's a lower amount than it used to be. Like she used to make a smoothie and like put a whole dropper full of stevia in there. But like 3 drops is her max. Like she'll put 3 drops of English toffee stevia into her coffee drink. And she'll blend that bad boy up, and then that's what she'll have. And so for me,
so with butter and MCT oil,
so
that's pretty
she'll
oily,
generally
right?
Most times she'll do the MCT oil, emulsified MCT oil, vanilla, and then she'll do the grass-fed butter, coffee, the Four Sigmatic coffee, and 3 drops of English toffee stevia. And so when I'm on the road,
makes it creamy.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. When I'm on the road, just getting a cup of hot water. I get high quality water when I travel. I'll stop at Whole Foods or whatever and go grab a bunch of bottles, bottled in glass. And so most hotels have a coffee maker. And so I'll just pour the water in there, let it boil. I'll put the, coconut oil is easy to travel with. So I usually use coconut oil on the road, throw that into my cup, let the hot water go in there, add the 4 Sigmatics, stir it up, and there you go. Voila. And also, with chaga, things like that. So you can cut that bitterness with fats or add a little bit of a sweetener, a natural sweetener, a little bit of stevia here and there. But I would encourage you to get familiar and to have that relationship and enjoy that.
Have a bitter relationship.
No, not a what?
No. Start to get more comfortable with bitter.
I don't know about that line. But just to have like that appreciation for the flavors, have a greater appreciation for those flavor notes, because there's so much beauty and value in these different things, these different sensations to get you more familiar with the food. So what's different about you guys and how you did stuff is you didn't just do one extraction method. You did both. So let's talk a little bit about that.
So yeah, I mean, so it used to be that I would buy the exact same Mushroom Science capsules and I would open them in my smoothie. But also I knew that if I want to get the brain boosting benefits of lion's mane, I need to get these fat soluble compounds. So I was like either tincturing myself or buying tinctures. And so I had to like combine 2 products. So getting 2 in 1 was great. And then the second part is that because I was constantly opening these capsules and sometimes I was opening 10, 15 capsules, like, this is so annoying. Why can't I just have it ready to go? So that was the other inspiration. And finally, the flavoring of using synergistic herbs is good to understand that historically we never would have just had coffee. So what you just described, what she does is actually really smart. Also herbalism is that we take a main herb and a supporting herb and the delivery system here, the fats, and we put it together and everything absorption gets way better. Yeah. So it's good to know that single herb stuff is not that common. We've always had like few things that worked better together. So just wanted to make an easier to use product, an alternative to capsules that would have both of these important things rather than having them separately, and bring it in a way and flavor that is more convenient for people. So I travel as well, and I'm carrying my milk frother to make my tonics all over. Actually, you turned me on to the Onnit emulsified MCT, which makes it a lot easier. Yeah. But still, I'm with my milk frother everywhere in the hotel room, making these tonics. By the way, great purchase. If you go to IKEA, it's like a few bucks. It's like the best purchase ever. Anyway, so I just wanted to make it convenient, more accessible to people, because I knew that it's not just about education. Like if it would just be a question of mushroom education, mushrooms would already been big 20, 30 years ago. It was more about making it so easy for people that they don't have to make any sacrifice to their current lifestyle and they can still reap the benefits. And once they start reaping the benefits, they notice it. And then it's easier to move into more advanced stuff. But in the beginning, before you've known, you're like, mushrooms, what are these guys talking? They have so first you got to feel it, and in order to feel it you got to make it super simple. So that was our goal. We want to popularize the consumption of these mushrooms and make the world's healthiest coffee products, and that's what we're aiming to do.
Yeah, and you guys are doing a great job. And
thanks.
I want to talk about one more of my favorite medicinal mushrooms, and of course there are several more that you guys, and people can go over and check out your website, check out the products. It's forsigmatic.com. So it's FOURSIGMATIC.com/MODEL. And you're going to get 15% off too as well. They hooked us up. So head over and check that out. But I want to talk about, since we've brought it up a couple of times now, that I use this, pre-workout for training, that kind of thing, Cordyceps. So let's talk about Cordyceps. There was some weird stuff, like back in the day when I first learned about it, it's like growing on top of a snail head, and it's like super rare, and like only the emperor could drink it. Let's talk about some of the history with Cordyceps and what makes it so valuable.
Yeah, actually, Cordyceps is probably the mushroom that or reishi that people will know first. It's the most sold medicinal mushroom in America. And a lot of people who take it don't know it's a mushroom. So they take it in some kind of a pre-workout booster package, part of other things, and it's just on the list. But Cordyceps is a funky mushroom. It's known, it became kind of an internet sensation. It's became like a meme because there's a BBC documentary where the Cordyceps essentially grows from these ants and comes out from their head like an alien. That freaked out a lot of people. But It does in wild. It does grow on moths and other things, animals, and it is synergistic. So you don't have to worry about it. It's super safe for humans. So there's many kinds of cordyceps, and none of them are lethal for humans. But it was only originally found when the Sherpas were in the Tibet. They were checking out. They were all tired, and they were having yaks. So yaks are like these big bulls or oxes that they carry stuff in these mountains, and they were all tired, and suddenly they started grazing on this thing which was odd, which was cordyceps mushroom, and then suddenly these yaks had all these life force, and they were like jumping around, and the Sherpas were like, wait a minute, what happened there? And they started eating it, and they figured out that it has all this life force.
They're jumping around and humping. Don't leave that part out. Yes.
Yeah. I try to keep it PC, but yeah, they were humping for sure. And so anyway, so it became a thing. And for almost 2,000 years in Oriental cultures, it was like the best kept secret. And it was very expensive. It still is in wild, very expensive. And only the emperors were allowed to use it. And then 93 world championships came when females broke multiple different long distance world records. And everybody thought it was doping because they run 10K under 30 minutes and insane stuff. And they tested them multiple times and they were clean. And their coach was just like, yeah, it was cordyceps. Like everybody takes it. So then the Western world started tuning up to it. And there's now been studies in Stanford and other great schools. And what we figured out is two big things, very interesting. One is VO2 max improvement. So maximum oxygen intake into our body. So instead of coffee or sugar, we can be more energized by having more oxygen in your lungs. That's a whole Wim Hof method, or any of these breathing methods. Yoga is about oxygenating our body. So cordyceps can help with that. And the other part is cellular energy, so this ATP production. So essentially we get more lubricated in producing energy. So we get more efficient in creating energy in our body naturally. So it's a great pre-workout booster for anybody who wants to get rid of coffee or have adrenal fatigue. But it's also great, I think, for cognitive function, because that mitochondria and that cellular energy also affects our brain power. So I wouldn't shy away from combining that with lion's mane if you have to think and focus and do a lot of brain activity going on. So that's the short story.
That's funny enough, one of my favorite combos, and I didn't ask him about this, just that once you start to get into this, you start to understand and have this natural affinity and guidance. It's so weird, and I love that he keeps on saying, keeping it on the science tip, because that's what our show is really about. But some things are just, you have to get hands-on and experience firsthand to be able to explain it. And I think it's wonderful. There's so much research coming out now. But there's been documented use in human history for thousands of years with cordyceps, for example. And just today, it's not like it just came out last week, some hit supplement, but the way that we're using it is now upgraded, because this company, Tero, thank you so much for creating this, is using a dual extraction method, getting the goodies from both parts, from getting the water extractable parts and the alcohol extractable parts. Then we've got the knowledge base to add a little bit of fats along with it to really get all the goodies from it that we're trying to get. And I think it's absolutely amazing. I want to, there's so many great things that you're bringing to bear. And I really appreciate you so much for having the courage to create this company. I know what's getting me is that if I was to do this, this is how I would do it, and you did it for me, because I wanted no part of putting in all the energy and effort into making something so amazing like this, because my gift is somewhere else. And I'm so grateful to be able to share you and share your message with other people. And I want to ask you one final question, man. What is the model or the example that you're here to set with the way that you're living your life personally? That's
a great question. I think I go back to it every year and I re-ask that question by myself. And I think the big thing is consciousness of that we're all one. Not in just in a spiritual way, but also physically. Like we're all particles, we're all vibrations, we're all literally one. So from the Big Bang to today, we're all made out of the same particles, and sometimes we don't behave and think like that. And I think that it comes in baby steps, and you can change the world, 180 degrees in one day. It comes in small changes, and every time I've helped people use mushrooms and to heal their gut or lower inflammation. Within 6 months, they usually made some huge life change or something improvement in their life. So my just mission is to popularize the shrooms and be their PR agency, and through that help with global consciousness, and in an easy and applicable way by, for example, upgrading their coffee. So rather than trying to do like a big thing, just try to start small and take it from there.
Yeah,
Perfect.
baby, but coffee is a big deal. So you done great.
Yeah. Man, so can you let everybody know where they can connect with you personally, where they can find you, and anything else you want to share before we close up?
Cool. Yeah, I mean, just guys, give mushrooms a chance in any form or another, and doesn't have to be our company. But yeah, you said it. You can go to foursigmatic.com/model and to get the special discount we hooked you guys up with. And also at the site there, we have a Mushroom Academy. We have now a beta version and soon out coming up with a totally next level Mushroom Academy. So Mushroom Academy is 100% free online e-learning about mushrooms in general. So if this caught your eye on it and you got a little excited and want to learn more, and let's do this and let's go foraging, and what are these other mushrooms like turkey tail or maitake or shiitake, you can go there and we'll just try to do the best we can in educating the nitty-gritty details of these mushrooms. But just guys, give mushrooms a chance. You can go check out foursigmatic.com and meet us on social. We're kind of like try to be everywhere. So it's Instagram, Facebook, so
the usual places.
You do it better. That you do Snapchat, you do Instagram, you do everything. We're not there yet, but we're aspiring to be you.
Hey, man. Thank you, man. I'm just learning from my teachers,
along.
man.
Yeah,
and man, thank you so much for sharing your gift and for sharing all these insights today. It's been really, really powerful and eye-opening. So thank you so much, man.
Thanks a lot. Rock out with your shroom out.
Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the show today.
Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot to digest here, but not digest mushrooms, right? Because it has the chitin. You need to break it down, right? As you learned today. That's why we need the proper training. We need to learn from our ancestors. We need to learn from brilliant people who've studied those ways and that connection. Tero has a really deep connection to this process, with his family history.
Uniquely
and it's a beautiful thing, right? It's a unique qualification, but also he's a genuinely good guy. Like he's it's like, man, why you gotta be so good? It's just too good. So definitely head over, check them out, foursigmatic.com/model. So again, that's FOURSIGMATIC.com/MODEL. Write it down, take a picture. Do whatever you got to do. Make sure that you head over there and check them out. It's something I've been using for a very long time now. It's a daily part of my life. And I definitely, everything that I do has a purpose, for sure. And I just want to make sure that you are taking advantage of such a health-giving, beautiful thing that we all have access to, and in a higher way. Because it's so funny, his story parallels mine so much. Like 10 years ago, we're like standing over our blenders, like opening up 15 capsules and, what I'm saying, trying to have that palate exchange and getting these rare things that we were studying about and experimenting with when this wasn't in popular culture yet. You didn't hear it on the Dr. Oz show yet, to find out what it does, and looking at the research and all those things. But he's made it incredibly easy. And I want to also take away today the fact that you are these mushrooms are similar to you, right? They have this same, when we're talking about this similarity, the DNA, the RNA. Wow, that's some magical stuff. That should make you think that our reality is a lot bigger and more vast than we can kind of drill it down to be sometimes, and get connected to the fact that we are a part of this. We're a part of this amazing reality, this amazing planet, and to embrace that and to be more conscious of that. And how, I love you mentioned that we're all connected. We are literally we're not going anywhere, except that guy on that rocket. But we're not going anywhere. We're together here and part of this body. We're the fruiting body in many ways. And that connection to the mycelium, that interconnected network that the earth is where we're getting all of our food and these amazing mushrooms and the spores, the life force that's in the air that we breathe. It's just a really fascinating thing. And I'm very grateful to be able to share this with you guys. And I hope that you got a lot of value out of this. So take care, have an amazing day, and I'll talk with you soon.